Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Oh, Ed's finished, so now we can talk about the Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time.
Our timer ran down. This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I am Sally Goodger.
The Dark One vision is so silly to me.
I know, Rand is like, this is worse than anything he's ever
worse.
showed me.
And you're like, hey.
And I'm like, I don't know about you, but that feels just kind of like what it's like living in the world. Like
Preach.
the whole time
Yeah.
they were like, they killed a child for stealing. And I'm like, they do that all the time in this world.
That's literally the police on
Yeah.
any given basis.
I was just like, Rand was just like, no one has any empathy. No one has any light. And I was just like, I think it's bad. But I think you're overreacting a little bit. He's like, I'd rather be tortured for 1,000 years.
Then lose my conscience. I'm
I was
like, I bet Jiminy Cricket loves that about you.
I was like, I think you're being so dramatic about this. I think the one where everyone was under mind control and being tortured was significantly worse, but okay.
Philosophically speaking, which is what we're getting into here. I mean, first there's a Tuon point of view, where Tuon has a fake name for Min, which I'm like, why is that relevant?
It's basically like Belinda.
Belinda?
What is
It's
it?
Darbinda.
Darbinda is worse, actually, than Belinda.
Darbinda. But I'm gonna call her Belinda, because that's better to me.
Yeah.
Tuon opens with an ethical crisis, which is that a bunch of her personal bodyguards are going to commit seppuku, more or less, for failing to protect her from the assassins. And she's like, I will give them the most honorable version of this possible, which is to send them into the front lines of the battle. And they're like, you got it, bitch, and are ready to leave off. But then she picks a fight with Matt about, like a dumb one, about her personal safety and the war, blah, 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 and is like, this is my perfect opportunity to leave with the rest of the Shanshin, which is what she does, and is like, I shall fool the spy, because the spy will underestimate me. And I'm like, I don't think you should, like, hinge your plots on the spy underestimating you, but okay. This plan is convoluted enough without me having a say in it.
I also just, like, I'll trust Matt, I guess, but
I won't trust Matt. Matt lost all credibility in this chapter when he was like, I'm the supreme commander of the forces of the light, and I am going into battle.
yeah.
And I was like, hey, bud.
It's like, I gotta get a feel for it.
And I was like, enough of this. Stop it. Stop.
What if you beef it?
Yeah.
And then what?
Then what?
Then what, Matt?
Then Elaine's in charge.
Tragedy.
Somehow.
But yeah, there's some like gamble they're hinging on, but it just like does not feel like an objectively good idea. To be like, we're removing 25% of the forces of a losing army.
Yeah, they're like, we're already outnumbered, so we're going to remove 1/4 of our forces, including a significant portion of our channelers. Just so that we can sort of like bring them back in at a later opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know about warfare. I'm not Sun Tzu, but I think what's that? You know that like long a comedian set where he's talking about the Loch Ness Monster, and he's like, I'm not a paleontologist or a botanist or a physicist or a historian. Like, goes on. He's like, but I think, what if a dinosaur had got in the lake? And you're like,
I don't know. I think that's a good
common
hypothesis.
sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not Sun Tzu, but I think, what if we didn't do this?
What if a dinosaur got in the lake?
What if a dinosaur had got in the lake?
What if then?
But we have to inject, as we talked about last time, as we sort of concluded our episode, we have to inject some sort of drama into this that isn't just like people fighting with swords, you know? Which I think there's a lot to be said about the like narrative satisfaction of fights generally, and much has already been said and written about this, but like in fiction and movies and TV and books, there's a difference between a fight scene that's there for the sake of a fight scene and a fight scene that has narrative or character-driven purpose.
Sure.
And that's generally applied to, like, you know, two people fist fighting.
Right.
It's more significant when John Wick is killing someone because they killed his dog than if John Wick is just fighting someone because it's the second act of the movie and we need a fight sequence at this point. And I think that in the macro sense applies to big battles too, and the harsh reality is that the last battle was always going to be just kind of good guys versus bad guys, very straightforward, and the only way to like inject any sort of interesting stuff into that was to lay that groundwork a lot earlier. So Brandon Sanderson's kind of like last minute, I'm gonna wrap up every character's lingering plot lines within the battle is a little, like you said, exhausting and not fun.
Yeah, I also, like you said, fight scenes exist either, like you said, for character development, which is great when you can do it well, or fight scenes exist just like be a fight scene. And we can all admit that fights are entertaining if done well.
Sure.
And there are certain like no one's going to say that the Fast and the Furious is like peak cinema, but watching them drive cars around and blow things up is like fun. And when you're engaging with it on that level of like, this is ridiculous, and the fight scenes that they're having in Hobbs and Shaw are ridiculous, and that's okay. And I'm not saying I want the Wheel of Time to like go to that level of absurdity, but they're on the other end, they could have just leaned into the fact that like this is a big battle and we can have fight scenes, and it's really sad because that's what Brandon Sanderson does best.
He's really good at them. It
was just like, I've got a big battle to fight and I'm gonna throw all my Brando Sando action sequence power behind this and just give you like the battle of all time.
Brando Sando Power Activate.
Activate. Power up, Brandon. And it's just like, I think that would have been, maybe Robert Jordan would have done a better job with being like, there are interpersonal conflicts happening on the battlefield, but I wish Brandon just would have been like, I'm here to write a big action sequence. That is my job.
They hired me to do the big action sequence and then just like lean into that.
Yeah, and just be like, okay, now we're watching this insane fight, and I'm just gonna have all my characters have these sweet ass fight moments and not try to lean into Matt and Tuon's marriage and Gawain's whole
inferiority
deal.
complex. Yeah. Oh God, boy.
Could have been more of an entertainment value thing going on with the last battle, but as it is, it's just kind of like,
yeah, if it was just pure explosions, this is cinema. Somehow, heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Nicole Kidman is on the battlefield in her silver suit.
She's helping the children identify bodies.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
Nicole Kidman rolls up, dressed to the nines, being like, do you think that one's dead?
And 3 children in a trench coat are like, no.
I was having like, we'll get to it.
Okay, yeah, first height of absurdity. We have Rand's latest inception with the Dark One, wherein the Dark One is like, here's a version of the world in which everyone thinks that they won the last battle, but in reality I won, and instead of just nihilist dissipating the world or creating some sort of hellscape the way Ishmael and others of the Forsaken desire. I have maintained the world order, but nobody has any sort of conscience or urges to do good in the world. Everyone is just sort of living.
Yeah, it's no empathy, and like what it boils down to is the Dark One basically being like, everyone's a sociopath. Like, they don't connect with each other. Sociopath in the like truly clinical definition of that being they have no empathy or no connection to other people, and they're just going to behave in the way that best suits their needs.
Sociopaths in our real world can still be influenced by like social mores, codes of ethics.
Absolutely.
You know, they don't have to have a sense of empathy in order to be good people.
Absolutely.
But here the notion is that, well, if no one has a sense of empathy, then there's no ethical barriers to stop anyone from doing anything that they want all of the time.
Yeah.
A couple notes about this. One, obviously this sort of AU alternate reality does not hold up to any form of scrutiny. The second you're like, nobody has any motivation to do anything good or for the benefit of society, you're like, why are people still engaging in basic economics then?
Yeah, I was like, okay, but we still labor?
Yeah, we're still doing labor. Like, we still have factions, power factions. Basil Gill still runs an inn for some reason.
Yeah.
It's not like the hospitality industry would survive.
Yeah.
This sort of, it's not like, you know, the idea here is that Rand goes through this sort of slow realization, this slow horror, and it's like, no, the world would be intrinsically different if we changed this thing in everyone's brains. It wouldn't look surface level the same.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not saying people wouldn't get bored and be like, maybe I'll pick up a job to entertain myself, but like you said, like, no one's gonna be running inns because Basil Gill would not be a good innkeeper and nobody would enjoy being there.
Basil Gill still somehow is an incredible innkeeper. He's just like the Rizzler over here.
So the whole thing is just like, it goes to a level of absurdity in general, and then like we referenced, Rand has such an oversized reaction to this.
He's like, this is the worst possible thing. I can't imagine anything more horrifying. And it's like, can't you?
Yeah,
Because I can.
Like, literally every other thing the Dark One has shown you, every other thing the Dark One has done up to this point in this series through the Forsaken has been worse than this. Like, I understand it's bad and we see a child get murdered and that's all, like, really horrible. But, like, you genuinely think this is the worst outcome.
Yeah, maybe if we saw a more in-depth analysis of what it would be like if no one had a conscience. Because the philosophy here that we're engaging with is a very, like, Nietzschean one. The idea that, quote-unquote, everything is permitted per Nietzsche. You know, might is right.
Yeah.
And therefore, anyone can do whatever they want and doesn't need to... doesn't need to pay any attention to ethics or social mores or whatever. It's the motivation behind Raskolnikov's murder in Crime and Punishment.
Oh, Raskolnikov.
Raskolnikov, my beloved. Of course, Raskolnikov is ultimately done in by his own conscience.
Yeah.
Which leads him to seek out punishment for his crime. I just spoiled the book for you, I guess.
Do you guys know that the book Crime and Punishment is
Ends
about...
with punishment. It's not called How to Get Away with Murder.
I hate when that happens.
Don't you fucking hate it when the criminal gets punished?
I mean, in many instances, yes, I do.
And do I think Siberia should exist? Well, I think Siberia, the landmass, should exist.
Do I think we should send quote-unquote
But the
criminals
Siberian
there?
prison industrial complex? No.
Absolutely not.
Stop it. Dostoevsky, just because you went there because of your fake execution doesn't mean you... Okay.
Dog, should we just have our next podcast is just not only reading every Dostoevsky book, but just getting into the Dostoevsky lore, the Dostoevsky cinematic universe?
There are two separate characters in the Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment who are named Katerina Ivanovna, and they're no relation. He just named them the same.
Maybe that's like was very common in his era.
It must
in
have
Russia.
been. I guess
It's
like naming two people John Smith.
Yeah.
But like Dostoevsky didn't you know that there would be a Dostoevsky cinematic universe? And I would be like, how are these women connected?
Who is this? The same woman?
Is this the same woman at different times of her life? Anyway.
That would be very funny if you were just like, she's my favorite character, so I brought her back.
I love her. She rocks. What the fuck are you talking about? This book isn't about Alyosha. It's about Katerina. Yeah, so we're engaging with Nietzschean philosophy here on a very surface level. I forgot what my point was there. It's like an interesting philosophy. It's obviously interesting RE crime and punishment when it's examined appropriately.
Yeah.
But, excuse me, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 pages isn't going to get you there, isn't going to be, like, interesting enough to merit Rand's, like you said, overreaction.
Yeah.
He's like, it's the worst thing I've ever seen for Basil Gill to turn me into the evil cops. And it's like, Basil Gill, who you haven't interacted with in 13 books?
Yeah.
That Basil Gill?
Yeah. Yeah, his reaction is so silly, and just like, I need to go back on what I said a couple of episodes, which is like, we could get into philosophy right now. And
maybe we shouldn't.
And now I'm like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever said. I wish those words had never left my mouth, because I just like, philosophy is like a hard thing for like smart people to crack. Like the smartest person that I know in the world, Dr. Alf Siegert, who's got all of his degrees in philosophy, can explain Nietzsche to me. No offense, Brandon Sanderson, you absolutely cannot. Like, especially not in this like trapping where like there actually isn't any room to explore what like the gray areas of philosophy. Like, you have someone positioned who is good and who is bad, so like you can't just like plug philosophy into that and be like everything is bad. And it's like, I'm not saying Nietzsche is my favorite person in the world, but like, put the philosophy up there and like see what sticks.
Yeah, it really just feels like we're sitting in the front row of a philosophy 101 class.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously I'm not going to get anything super interesting out of that. Obviously Rand is going to react to this exactly the way I would expect him to react to this. And because the Dark One is just cosmic evil, I don't really see any point for him to construct this world over any other, you know? There's not, like, stakes in understanding what the Dark One would do if it wins.
Yeah.
As opposed to, a little bit, there being stakes to understanding what will happen if Rand wins. For example, at the end of this, Rand is like, okay, time to show you my trump card. What I really want is to eliminate the Dark One from the world, so I'm going to show you the reality in which that happens. Yeah. And we're left on this cliffhanger. What will that look like? Spoiler, not good.
Not good, the Smiths.
Not good, not so good, the Smiths. Next time you invite Pam.
Pam, who death forgot.
Pam, who death... the final Pam. We switch to a Matt point of view as he sends off Min to go with Tuon. He's like, keep an eye on her, please. They hug, which seems so out of place. Like, it's so wild to me that Matt and Min are suddenly having a relationship at this stage of the series, but whatever.
What do I know?
Matt recruits the Death Watch guards who Tuon sent off to die. He's like, yeah, instead of doing that, why don't you come guard me on the... not necessarily on the front lines, but within the battle. That would also be honorable for you to do. And they agree to do that, and Matt goes to, quote, get a feel for the battle, unquote, without sort of establishing, okay, what's the command structure, and how do messengers reach him, and how does he, you know, up in the air.
Military genius. Mm-hmm. Matt Cathon.
Tam is fighting, doing sword stuff. Lan comes up with backup. We get a little bit of an update on how the battle is sort of going, which is bad. But while they're standing there talking, they're gonna take the wounded away to Maine, where the hospital is. But Berelain comes out with...
I think you mean Herspital.
I think you mean Herspital. I'm so sorry. Berelain is in charge, and as we all know, Berelain's a huge feminist.
Yeah.
So it's a Herspital. Berelain shows up with the refugees from Camelin, and they're like, yeah, we want the refugees are like, we want to go to the battle, and it's like, there are children. And they, like, the fact that children are here just elevates this to absurd instantly.
Yeah.
It makes sense on some level that the adult refugees, like every other adult we've seen in this series, would be like, yeah, we want to go help. Therefore, we will find and rescue the wounded, transport the wounded, you know, try and do sort of battlefield tasks that need doing. But the fact that there are children is insane.
Yeah, I was thinking about a lot about this today. Because when I was reading about Tam, I was like, I'm so sick of checking in with just, like, every man who can hold a sword. But then I was like, no, the point is that, like, every person, every single individual, no matter how small their task in the last battle, is playing a role in them winning, which is, like, a huge theme in the Wheel of Time about every interconnected thread forming the pattern, yada, yada, yada. And that's kind of inspirational if you sit with it, that, like, you can't always do the biggest task in the world to make things better or to care for the people around you, but you can always do, like, your one small thing, yada, yada, yada. And then they show up with refugees, and I'm like, yeah, everybody should get to play a role. And then they brought out the kids, and I was like, again, with Oliver, I'm not entirely sure who, like, approved this. And then I was trying to be like, am I like applying, like, our world ethics to this, like, back in previous time periods? Would, like, children have been on the battlefield? Would it have felt as big of a deal? But Wheel of Time has established, like, similar cultural norms around childhood as the world we have today. And I also understand that it's not possible in every place around the world for children to be protected from warfare because shithole countries like America bring their weapons onto other countries' soil. Lockheed Martin, perish. But it really just, like, I was trying to, like, spin these wheels in my head justifying it, but I'm like, this is absurd at the end of the day. It's just absurd. Like, why aren't these children somewhere safe?
Yeah, like you said, Wheel of Time has very clearly established that people everywhere try to protect their children from warfare, but, like, in Wheel of Time, it's like we will strap children to our back and run into the woods to get them away from the fighting. Yeah. You know, the way people have done for centuries. So the fact that there are children here means that on some level, either they're just random orphans who no one has claimed. Yeah,
taken accountability for.
Or there are adults out there who are, like, responsible for these children, who are like, yes, this is a fine place to send my child. It's the end of the world. Even a child can help. Yeah. And it's like, I don't think at the end of the world, even, people would willingly subject their children to that.
Yeah, if there was, like, another option, and the option being you were already in Camelin, you did not need to bring the children here.
You are an adult, and we haven't heard that there's such a lack of willing hands. Yeah. That children will make much of a difference.
In fact, one concrete thing you can be doing at the last battle is protecting the children.
Is child care, yeah. Children are still gonna exist after the last battle. So children are gonna exist always.
And then the children just walk around looking at the dead bodies to see if anyone's still alive. And I was like, did someone tell the children to do this? They seem quite organized.
Yeah, the children are like, well, Gavroche is there, obviously. Yeah. And Gavroche is like, okay, little buddies, here's how to check for a pulse. Yeah. He's giving them CPR lessons in the fucking Herspital in Maine.
Stop the bleed. Stop the bleed. Here's Gavroche. Here's how you use a tourniquet.
Oh my god. You need... How many 8-year-olds does it take to tie a tourniquet?
I don't know. I've heard you have to crank them a lot more than you think you do.
Crank them pretty damn hard. Yeah. So just putting out there that child CSI is not going...
CSI, The Last Battle, our main detective, an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah, these are all 8-year-olds who are like, how do you think this person died? And they're like, I don't know, Greg. I think a Trolloc stabbed him in the stomach.
I think he got his head bitten off.
Those are his guts over there, you know? The horrors of battle. You can't simultaneously be like, the horrors of battle, and also be like, but isn't it so heartwarming how children are helping?
How children want to participate.
I cannot believe this got past the editors.
Yeah.
I mean, I can because...
I don't think this section was edited.
But, whoa.
But there had to be some editor who's like, hey, Brandon, I have some logistical questions.
Like,
this
were
isn't
they
as
like,
heartwarming as you think it is.
Oliver can't be the only child involved. He can. He's the only child Robert Jordan has written.
Yeah.
Therefore...
Nonsense.
Absolute nonsense. Okay. Elaine is on the battlefield. She's like, everyone's like, we don't fucking know where Matt is, so Elaine has to take command. Then Demandred starts sniping at Elaine specifically. Which, honestly, kind of cunt.
I know. I was reading it, and he's like, okay, Lutheran, if you won't come out, I'm going to come after your baby mama. And I'm like, this might be one instance of I will attack your girlfriend that I approve of.
That I think is really funny.
Yeah, because it's like, Elaine, you could just not be pregnant on the battlefield.
You don't
making
have to
yourself
be
a
here.
target for the man who's shooting Balefire.
I am curious about, like, was there a press briefing for Demandred on, like, okay, here's what we know about the Dragon Reborn's triad of insane women. Here's what they look like. Here's how to find them. This one will be on a big horse. She's 13 months pregnant, according to the narrative.
Yeah. I like to imagine Elaine is like, no one knows where Matt is, so raise my flag and everyone will know where I am. And I have to imagine some, like, assistant running up and being like, excuse me, the Wild?
Mr. the Wild?
Mr. the Wild, I actually need you to know that, like, that flag is Lutheran's girlfriend. And Demandred's like, excellent. Bang, bang.
Let me get my long-range Balefire gun.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be funny if Demandred had a gun that shot Balefire. Like, it wasn't out of his hands. He was just like, I think it's funnier if I do it with a gun. Like a little water gun.
Nerf gun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so things are going badly.
Elaine almost dies.
There's Balefire. It's bad. Brigitte is like, obviously we have to run and hide.
Yeah.
From the man who's trying to Balefire you. We have to go find, like, there's our responsibility as important people in this battle to go find a place, establish a command post, and do stuff from there. Elaine's like, fine. So they run off. Of course, horror movie rules, separating from the herd is never a good idea, but I guess standing around waiting to get Balefired isn't a good idea either. Then Glad rolls up. He and Gawain have both been like, we're gonna have these epic entrances, and then it's just so embarrassing.
When Demandred is like, could you guys
Demandred's like, what?
stop doing this?
Glad rolls up and is like, Demandred, I challenge you. You can't fight the Dragon Reborn, but you can fight me, his brother. And Demandred's like, Shendla, why wasn't this in the briefing?
Shendla!
If I'd known there was a brother, I would have sniped him.
Yeah.
Don't you get it?
Shendla, he wasn't on my snipe list. And Shendla's back there flipping through pages like, he wasn't on my snipe
flipping
list.
through Pokemon cards like, I don't know anything about this guy except he's the hottest man in the world.
Yeah.
That's literally his entire personality.
Yeah. I have his stats right here and it just says hot.
It just says hot. Hot and autistic.
And Demandred's like,
my prime nemesis. Lutheran was also hot and autistic.
it runs in the family.
I'll get him. Okay, anyway. Then they start fighting.
Yeah.
Demandred's like, okay, whatever. Nynaeve is in the cave fighting.
Of Wonders.
Of the Cave of Wonders, trying to sew up Alana's gut wound. And Nynaeve, just because there's no such thing as subtlety in the Brandon Sanderson world, is like, just so you know, if any other woman who wasn't as stubborn as me and clung to my old medicine ways had tried to do this, Alana would be dead and the world would be kaput.
I'm like, you know what, Brandon? I
understood that actually.
I understood that, like, Nynaeve's character arc as, like, someone who had to do quote-unquote backwoods medicine. It's crucial for her to be here and not be able to rely on magic. I have reading comprehension skills.
Yep. But God forbid. Matt, while he's fighting, runs into Bashir and Mrs. Bashir. They're like, hey, what's up? Matt's like, Daddy! No, Matt's like, how are you fighting? I thought you got brainwashed. And he's like, I'm not in charge or anything, so figure that's fine. Technically he is in charge. He's the king of Saltia, but Matt's like, we haven't really had a coronation, so...
Yeah, no one's really talked about that.
Sort of unofficial at the moment. Matt is like, hey, has anyone seen from your daughter? Has anyone heard from Belle? And Bashir is like, nope. And Matt's like, poor Perrin. And I'm like, poor her parents who are standing right in front of you.
Right in front of you, girl.
Like, are we forgetting that? How is this possible? Anyway, he sends Bashir off to go do more fighting. Matt finds the Ogier sort of contingent and talks to Loyal. Matt is like, okay, I'm going to take you, I'm going to take the Death Watch guards, and I'm going to recruit this big army of Dragonsworn, which is also more or less just an army of refugees. Like, that's what the Dragonsworn are, just random people who don't fit under any other banner. But whatever. He's like, I'm going to take you guys into enemy territory to sort of distract Demandred, more or less. This is territory that they have already ceded to Demandred, but now they're just going to show up with more forces.
I came back.
Hey, you thought you'd seen the last of me, bitch. Matt reunites with Teslin, which is cute. I like Matt and Teslin. I think they're charming.
I think Teslin and Matt are funny.
Teslin and Matt.
He's like, Teslin!
And she's like, oh my god.
She's like, you're embarrassing. Stop.
So that's what they do. No more command tent, I guess. Matt's just in the battle. We switch to Edwene waking up in the Herspital.
Oh my gosh.
As they're like, well, surely she's just going to have to rest here for days. And Edwene is like, obviously I'm not going to rest here for days while the last battle is being waged. I'm going to go join the battle. And they're like, well, it's hard to channel when you're dealing with the warder bond, having the warder died. And Edwene is like, but I'm stubborn, so I'll figure it out anyway. And this lady's like, here's a great coping mechanism for grief. Focus on a different emotion that's not grief. Okay. And Edwene's like, that'll be easy. I'm pissed. So, got girl boss here. And she's like, as the ultimate sign of a girl boss, I will take a page out of Elaine's book and bond a lady warder, a lightly lesbian-coded warder lady. So basically she's like, hey, Leolwyn, do you want to be my warder? And Aegianon's like, I guess. Sure.
Yeah, Egg's reasoning being like, I need another warder immediately to, like, watch my back is so funny. Like, Gawain's body isn't even cold yet,
I know.
girl.
I am so amused thinking of Gawain in the afterlife. Like, oh my god, she replaced me with a lesbian, like I always knew she would.
Rats.
Damn it.
Egg does also wake up to Sylviana being like, Gawain was never shit. I hated that bitch. Fuck him. I'm gonna go piss on his grave. And Egg is like, could you not talk about my husband like that? And Sylviana is like, I hope he dies again.
He's in hell.
I hope he's being flayed by the demons. Fuck him.
Sylviana's like, that bitch idiot. Yeah. I fucking hate him.
So,
and Edwine's like, have some respect for the dead. And Sylviana's like, I will when the dead are worth respecting.
Yeah.
That was a loser of a man.
And we're all like, hell yeah, Sylviana, you remain unparalleled
you
as
remain
a character.
Iconic. Yeah, girl, get him. Edwene returns to the battlefield. Galad's confrontation with Demandred. This will shock you guys. It doesn't end well. The book does go out of our way to clarify, both by Demandred saying it and by, Galad lasting longer, that Galad does a better job than Gawain. But still not enough. And Demandred cuts his arm off and then, swings his blade, and Galad either dies or loses consciousness. It is unclear.
All went black.
Demandred swung his blade once more, and you're like, okay, surely he's decapitating Galad, because that's a killing blow. Sort of a never fails killing blow.
pretty hard to live without your head.
Yeah.
I've never seen
I've
it
heard
done before.
impossible. I'm no paleontologist.
I'm no paleontologist.
I'm no scientist.
I'm no historian.
I'm no doctor. But I think you need your head to live.
Yeah.
But it's unclear what has happened to Glad. I mean, spoiler, because of the way I'm talking, Glad will live.
That's another thing he did better than Gawain.
He's
Demandred
alive.
didn't kill him.
But I remember reading this the first time and being like, oh, well, Glad's dead too. See ya.
Rip. It would have been incredibly funny if Demandred killed both Gawain and Galad. And
One
was
after
like,
another. One and done.
Yeah.
Decimating the Andrew
Yeah.
royal line.
Yeah.
And while he's Balefiring Elaine,
Still go fighting
he's
Galad
like,
with
I have
one
beef
hand.
with this family in particular.
Yeah.
And we're like, we all do, man.
Yeah, none
Go
of
off,
them
King.
are particularly pleasant.
Anyway, that's that section. In terms of macro plots, Rand still having his conversation with the Dark One. Perrin still unconscious. Unheard of. Edwin has made a brief exit from the battlefield, but is now returning more angry, but less powerful than before, I guess. She's got her big sangreal. Demandred still kicking and just sort of taking out B-plot characters left and right. Matt has fully vacated the premises mentally and is just in the battle.
Yeah, we've got a loose commander-in-chief. We've got Elaine trying to take command. That will go well. Mm-hmm. We've got Nynaeve doing impromptu stomach
Field
surgery in a cave?
without morphine.
Like, okay, what is this, the Battle of the Bulge? I saw that episode of Band of Brothers.
I've seen Saving Private Ryan,
Yeah.
and I know this doesn't go well.
Come on.
Oh,
Oh, also Gareth Bryn beefed it, predictably.
yeah, Gareth Bryn beefed it kind of off screen.
And everyone was like, okay,
Everyone's like, oh, that means Swan's dead, I guess.
moving on.
Everyone was like, whoa, goodbye, sir. I really just can't get over Matt joining the battle. I'm so upset. It's just like they got their command post attacked, and they were like, okay, well, clearly there can't be a command post because we had one and it got attacked. And I'm like, you know, people can move command posts.
Again, I'm no paleontologist, but I think it's probably a pretty common tactic to attack a command post. They're like pretty obvious markers of where the important people are.
Yeah.
You just gotta set up a new one, pal.
You gotta keep doing it with the command post, or like innovating ways to have a command post in which you can maintain command.
Yeah.
Not just joining the battle. Matt joining the battle, I would understand if it was happening later, when sort of all of the die are cast.
Yeah.
More or less. But it feels we're only about halfway through this chapter of the last battle, so it feels very preemptive.
Yeah, it also makes sense for Matt to go on the battlefield like a purpose. Matt being like, no one else can do it, I'm going to go fight Demandred. That would be so satisfying.
And I have established chain of command if I don't make it back, you know. But Matt just doing it for the walls is weird and insane. I think the only other relevant thing is that Matt notes in his point of view that he is feeling the sensation of Rand needing him. Mm-hmm. The sort of Taviran call.
Yeah.
But he's like, can't do it, buddy. Not yet.
Yeah, obviously the reference to fail is, for Matt's reference, as being like, I would love to have the Horn of Valir right now. Mm-hmm. And I would also love for Matt to have the Horn of Valir right now. If Matt rolled up to a duel with Demandred and just had the Horn of Valir and was like, beep, beep.
Beep, beep, Artur Hawkwing, bitch.
And Artur Hawkwing came in and kicked Demandred's ass.
That would have been so cool.
If Artur Hawkwing was like, I've had enough of you in particular.
I've been watching from the afterlife, and
you're done. You're cooked.
Bitchless. First you kill Shendla, now you're bitchless.
That would actually, Artur Hawkwing comes on the battlefield and is like eating down, just like, I've killed your bitch. Your outfit's ugly. Fuck your manicure. You look like shit.
God. Artur Hawkwing would be such a better sort of Alexander the Great metaphor if that was real.
He was just a mean bisexual.
Yes. Everyone would be better if they were bisexual and meaner.
That's true.
Okay. That's where we're at. Character Death Watch. As mentioned, Bryn beefed it. Glad, unclear status, but otherwise no major character deaths.
Most of them are still around.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's still kicking. Children are on the battlefield, though, so...
Imagine you're Demandred being like, how can I do more evil to draw loose the Renown? And then you see a bunch of children running around the battlefield.
You have to imagine Demandred with his little evil spyglass is, like, scanning the battlefield, scanning... What? Was that an 8-year-old?
Was that 7
Was
8-year-olds?
that a very short man, or... Oh my god, no, that's Gavroche.
He's cranking a tourniquet.
He's cranking a tourniquet.
He can't stop.
The children are covered in blood because the tourniquet just keeps... It's like they spilled Kool-Aid.
And Demandred's like, they're just making it easy for me, you know?
Demandred's like fish in a barrel. No, Demandred's like, I don't need to... They've already done the worst thing you could do. I'm just gonna leave them to it.
These poor 8-year-olds. It's like a freaking... It's like Monty Python. Amounts of blood coming out of this leg wound.
Oh my god. Oh, that mental image is so much funnier than it has any right to be.
Not very good battlefield medics, these 8-year-olds. As it turns out. Oh, don't you hate when that happens? When you put an 8-year-old on the battlefield and they can't perform.
Oh my god. Under pressure.
The KPIs, the key performance indicators, are not being met.
Gavroche is like, we reviewed your performance.
Sits down on a dead Trolloc, pulls out a clipboard.
All right.
Gavroche is the star of this season of Wheels of Everybody Hates Brand. I believe this is our 4th episode.
I just think he's neat.
I agree. It's just a very funny podcast hyperfixation for us to be like, and also Gavroche is here. How do you do? My name's Gavroche.
Okay.
Tybalt wants to eat Dindin bad.
We have to go. Okay.
Tybalt, unlike Ed, will yell. When he's hungry, Tybalt will just sit where we put his bowl and look
sad and tragic.
So pathetic.
He'll look like an 8-year-old every time. I'm Tourniquet. Fuck me. Okay. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song, and our patrons on Patreon, and our followers on social media.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. I do have a tourniquet related one from a while ago.
Jesus.
It's not actually that funny. I just think it is funny that it's relevant. My company, paid for an ex-cop of all things to come in and do an active shooter training.
Oh, yeah.
For everyone to be like, if this happens at the building, yada, yada, yada. And then he was talking about tourniquets and like how just like basically here's the basics of how you use a tourniquet. Yeah. And he's like, you should know where they are in the building. Like, tourniquets are very great and they can really save somebody's life. But then he's like, you guys should also go have tourniquets with you if you go hiking. And everyone is like, what are you talking about? In case I get attacked by a bear? Like, why? And then he's like, does anybody have a tourniquet in their hiking bag? And one of my coworkers raised their hands. And she's like, of course I have a tourniquet in my hiking bag. And we were all like, she used to be in the Navy, I found out. So that explains it a little bit more. But for months, I was like, why does she have a tourniquet? Like,
was it never explained why you might need a tourniquet? Like,
I assume just like maybe if you fall or like get injured, like
in any sort of accident.
Yeah, just like there's lots of ways that you could, I'm sure, get injured and start bleeding while hiking. Of course, a bear attack is not the only way, but we were all just like really taken aback by the shift from active shooter to hiking.
With the idea that every like hiker in America saw 127 hours and was like, oh my god, this could happen to me.
You're so right. What if your arm got caught?
I've got to pack a tourniquet.
Yeah.
Gotta update the standards. Okay. I hope you're not squeamish, people for listening to this and having
Yeah. Sorry that wasn't a very good sign off, but it did feel...
Of course I have a tourniquet.
Yeah, I was like, excuse me?
Squeeze me?
In my hiking bag, I have...
Granola bars.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tibble, what's happening?